Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is Oklahoma State men's golf coach Alan Bratton, fresh off his team's victory in the NCAA championship at La Costa last week. Alan and I talk about that championship in particular, but also go back and actually relive 4 other championships that he was involved with and that I was involved with, a couple of them. And we just do a lot of reminiscing, going down memory lane, really good. Alan does a great job of storytelling in this, and there's a lot of good historical data for college golf history that I think you'll find very interesting. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, Better Than I Found It, faithful. Let's welcome 2-time NCAA championship coach Alan Bratton to the podcast today. Alan, thanks for joining me on such short notice.
Easy to come on with you, Coach. I owe a lot to you, and you're one of the important mics in my life. There's several that we can discuss if you want to, but always a pleasure to come on and certainly to talk about national championships.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know, your Cowboys just won the school's 12th NCAA championship just 3 days ago, basically. You've just traveled back. And first of all, congratulations. That's incredible. I watched it from here in Waco and was pulling for you guys. Just thought it was really, really cool how you all won. It was a great championship. But you're back to reality now because golf camp starts tomorrow.
Yeah, you know the drill, don't you? I mean, we did that for a lot of years, and but what an extra little boost to, so much of golf camp is trying to inspire some kids. It's not like we can turn them into Tiger Woods in 3 or 4 days, but you certainly can fuel a passion for the game and the want to try and play college golf at some level. And if they're not inspired by getting to see the trophy at registration and some of our kids while they're doing camp, then they probably don't have a chance. So it'll be fun to be around them and tell them some stories for the week while we give them some decent instruction and again, just inspire that dream.
Yeah, for sure. And, speaking of golf camp stories, EJ Pfister, I think, worked Mike Holder's golf camp back in the 80s and found his wife at golf camp, didn't he?
He sure did. So it's a good thing that I don't know what the rules and all that kind of stuff. That was a different time. But yeah, what a story they are, and they've been married for a long, long time.
A long time, absolutely. Well, how many kids do you have in camp, for one?
It's a little smaller. We've got 50 coming this week and 60 next week. So, or the second session, all in 1 week. So we're at Lakeside. Karsten is not ready for the Cowboy golf camp yet. So we had to limit the numbers a little bit, and but it's kind of fitting. That's where the camp originated, and that's where I worked the camp all those years when I was in school, and we did it there a few years ago when we had a flood, and then we've done it last year and this year because of the renovation. So it'll be fun to stick with our roots and honor Labron Harris by continuing the camp that he started however many years ago. You probably know exactly how many.
Well, it's the oldest continuously running camp in the United States at any level since 1954. Somewhere in your office, Alan, is a video or audio tape of Labron Harris giving a young man from Ponca City, Oklahoma, a golf lesson during camp, and it was from the 1950s. So wow. It's the oldest camp period, and Labron got it started. He even worked Mike Holder's camp for a few years before he left and went to Arizona, but Mike kept it for all those years, and I had it for 8 or 9 years, and now you've had it for about 10 or 11. So long-running camp. Good luck this week.
Thanks.
Well, listen, we're going to talk about this past week's national championship victory for you guys at La Costa. But before we do that, I decided that I wanted to bring in some golf history from the national championship. So I'm just going to start, and we'll let you tell stories based upon my questions. You ready?
Okay, I'm shocked that you know some history from that deal.
Are you really?
I'm sure you had to do some real extensive research. It's amazing the stuff that you can remember, and I find myself doing the same things that I used to make fun of you for. So I definitely appreciate golf history. So let's let it rip.
Let's do it. Okay, so your freshman year, you and Chris Tidlin were on a really great team that included Bob May and Kevin Wentworth and Jackson Brigman and several other great players. I think Scott Deserrano maybe had some great players. You guys weren't going to make the team that year that would travel and win the national championship in California, correct?
Correct. We redshirted that year.
Okay. Talk about the pact the two of you made that you didn't tell anybody about, you and Chris, a pact to be the hardest working players in all of college golf. Tell me a little bit about that because I remember Chris Tidlin telling me about it way back when.
Yeah, that year, I know at the start of the year, uh, I thought I was coming to Oklahoma State by myself. I was the only freshman that coach had committed for a long time, and I was a little nervous about that. And it turned out just before I came to school, I found out we had this other guy from California coming, and we struck up a friendship right away. We spoke the same language, and we were a few weeks into school, and we just kind of followed the flow of different things. And we were wide-eyed and getting our butt kicked by a really good team, and I remember we looked at each other and we're like, "Hey, is this how you kind of went about your business at home, like the way you practiced and whatever?" And I said, and both of us were like, "No." And we knew we needed to get a whole lot better, and we knew that that was going to mean some sweat equity, and we decided that we didn't know how good we could be or what we could do, but we weren't going to let anybody outwork us. And I remember an exchange. I don't remember the details of it, but we had a really good player on the team at the time who was a returning first team All-American, Craig Hainline, who also worked very hard. And Chris popped off to him at some point. I don't even know how we got there, but that, you know, we were going to be the hardest working guys or something like that. And I just remember him saying, "Pard, if you guys outwork me, we're going to be really good next year." And that was pretty prophetic. We were pretty good the next year. But we set about our business of trying to get really good. And that was my favorite year of college. I didn't play a single tournament, but I point back to that for anything I did in my playing career. That was the foundation for it. I got to play with an All American every day. Bob May was ineligible, so he played with the two freshmen every day. Kevin Wentworth was an incredible human being and leader and player. I got to see what that type of leadership looks like. And just, I got to settle into school. We had a good time. That just set the foundation for anything I was ever able to do as a player. So it's my favorite year. Um, Two things that I mentioned to somebody maybe yesterday. I went on with Casey Kendrick here, and
Mm-hmm.
and from that year, one thing I remember is the very first meeting of the year. Mike Holder sat us down and he said, "Boys, we're going to win the national championship this year." And as a freshman, that didn't come as a surprise. I thought, well, he must say that every year. And he was inspiring, as you know he can be. And we were coming off a year where we had the best team the year before and we didn't win. And he said we were going to win. And again, I thought, well, this must be an every year thing. I was at Oklahoma State for 5 years and I never heard him say that again. Um, and come the end of that year, Chris is from California. The national championship was at Poppy Hills. And I was home in Texas trying to follow the championship. But the way you knew how things went is I had to go buy a newspaper every morning and see how we did. But Chris actually went to the tournament. He drove up and he and his parents went and watched that 91 championship that we actually won. And I had kind of forgotten that until this week. I was able to, they had us on the set after we won, and we had our five guys, and John Wild was our sub. And I remembered that last year when we played in the tournament, we weren't much of a factor, but we had our five guys and we actually had a couple subs and finished 23rd. But during the week, John Wild, who was one of our reserves, flew out on his own dime to be there with his dad to watch the tournament, to see La Costa and support his teammates. Well, this year he was our sub. And once we earned our way to the final match, I got a text from another one of our reserves, that'll be a redshirt freshman for us next year, Brady Catalano. And he said, "Coach, I'm hopping a plane at 4 in the morning. My dad and I are coming out to watch." So, what a fantastic culture to, set by John Wild. I didn't ask him to do that. He did it on his own. Brady knew about that. thought enough of his teammates to want to be there to support, and was able to come out and do it. Colin Bond would have come, but he was playing in a golf tournament. So that was great. Again, rewarding as a coach to think that your guys feel that way about their teammates. And again, it reminded me back to my redshirt freshman year when my teammate and best friend did the same thing. So those guys were with us on the set afterwards with the media stuff. We had a great dinner after to celebrate before we all traveled the next day.
Wow, great story. I love that. And I love the team camaraderie aspect of it. I remember you telling me the story when the following year in fall of 91, when you had the first qualifying and Chris made the trip and you did not. And you and Gretchen, your then girlfriend, put through a party for Chris Tidland to congratulate him on making the team and making the trip. And I remember thinking when I heard that story, and I think Chris told me the story, I thought, that's true teammates right there, because you had to be gutted not to be playing in the first tournament, and your roommate was. Am I remembering that story correct?
Yeah, definitely. I was disappointed that I didn't make it, but I was happy for my buddy, and I probably always thought he was better than me, even when my results started out better than him. I mean, you've been around Chris. What a awesome guy,
Rock star of
but
a guy.
super talented player as well. And he didn't miss a beat. He went to the first tournament. I think he finished fifth. He either finished fourth or fifth right out of the gate, and that was the Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we played. It's kind of interesting that year. They played the Tucker at the University of New Mexico golf course. And then the very next tournament we played was the preview at the University of New Mexico golf course, because that year, ultimately, the national championship was going to be there. And I didn't make that one either. But Chris got to go again. And I don't remember how we did as a team either way, um, but yeah, we didn't win, but I think we were competitive, and Chris was obviously competitive at both.
Yeah, in the first year I got to Oklahoma State, we did the exact same thing. We played the Tucker and the preview, and then the NCAA late that year. So I remember exactly that same thing. But that year, you guys finished third at the national championship in New Mexico, and normally a guy like Mike Holder, who winning was the thing, you would think that would not be a very good memory for him. He remembers looking back at the award ceremony when they gave Oklahoma State the third place trophy. He remembered looking at Bruce Hepler, the assistant coach, and saying, "Man, we took one from him this year." It's like, because you had a very young team, and there were, but he knew that team had improved throughout the year, and he knew he was setting the stage for something great in the future. Have you ever known Mike Holder to say he was happy about a third place finish ever?
No, you're absolutely right. And he told us that. He was fired up that we finished third, and he told us what a great job. I mean, that's a guy that throws away runner-up trophies and um, is very much you either win the championship or nothing. And he was not that way that year. That was a good year. We didn't win a tournament. I think it was the first time that
Ever.
he had a team not win a tournament. And then it was the first time we had lost to Oklahoma at the conference championship. Um, so yeah, he kind of he loves that phrase of "let's show him a white blackbird," Boone's phrase.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And now that I think about it, that was kind of one of those there. But yeah, he surprises you every now and then.
He surprised me there. But the following year in Kentucky at the national championship, I want you to tell this story right here because Mike told it to me on a couple of occasions, and you guys were not playing well that year, and you were in the morning wave and had not played well, and so you were going to be on the cut line to make the cut for the 36-hole cut for the national championship. And I guess he dressed you guys down pretty good in the parking lot, and then had Bruce Hepler take you back to the hotel, and then he watched some golf. Tell me that story and get it to the playoff eventually.
Yeah, that's a real peach, Coach. Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
We had a better year. We had built on some of the success from the year before. We were actually ranked number one in one poll, and I think Arizona was maybe one in another poll. And I was our best. Well, no, I was not our best player that year, but I must have been playing in the number one spot. So, first of all, the week got off to a lousy start for me. Coach Holder we had been building the golf course. He was distracted quite a bit all year. His father had some kind of health issues and was in the hospital, so he was grumpy anyway. And there were 2 practice rounds, and the first practice round was the East-West All-Star match, as they called it. And Chris and I were playing in that. And I was in one of the last groups of that, and Chris had been in one of the first groups. So I just finished. I've literally just walked off, and this is a match that you play, but it's also your first practice round. And I walked up to the putting green, and I was hitting a few putts, and all I hear from Mike Holder is, "Come on, Alan, let's go. You're wasting your time." I've been on the putting green for 30 seconds. And I said, "Wasting my time?" And then as soon as he had turned around to walk the other way. And as soon as those words left my mouth, I could not catch them fast enough. And I wondered out loud, did I say that out loud? And he stopped in his tracks and turned around. This is the first practice round.
Yeah, we haven't played
And
the tournament yet.
he ripped into me like you can't believe. Told me if he tells me to jump, I needed to ask how high. If he tells me to hike my leg over on that tree, that I better get to it. And he was jamming his finger into my chest, and then he grabbed me by the ear and dragged me across the green right there. Well, come to find out, my little buddy Chris Tidlin had been on the putting green, panicked for an hour and a half or something like that, and I got to take the brunt of it. And fast forward to the next day, coach was standing on the par threes. I was our last guy to come through. And he would never, ever let us know how we were doing on the course. He was unfazed. You coached with him,
Oh yeah.
you could be doing terrible or good, and you could never tell. Well, he wasn't himself that day. And we went through actually, that wasn't that day. That was the second round. I had shot 71 in round 1, which was our low score, but we shot 300 as a team with me shooting 71. So now it's the second day. I'm coming to the last hole, which was number 9. It's a long par 3, 3-iron. I kind of go through the normal progression of, I have no idea how we're playing, but I'm playing like a pig. And we go through, is this the target or whatever? And it's a 3-iron. And he looked at me and he said, "Unless you knock it in the hole, you're not helping us." And he walked off. And I'm like, huh, looks like we're having a good day. And I don't know what I did, but I don't know if my score counted or not. I definitely did not hole out, so I must not have counted. And so yes, he ripped into us again because we were going to miss the cut, which the worst he'd ever done is 4th. So he rips on us for a while, like we deserved. And then Bruce took us back to the hotel. Well, do you want me to finish the week story or
Well,
just get you to the playoff?
just get me to the playoff. I know that he went
Okay.
out to watch golf and he talked about watching coaches choke during that
Yeah.
time.
So, but part of the discussion that we had is that his name is beside that on the scoreboard, and Labron Harris is going to roll over in his grave, and this is embarrassing. You're the worst team I've ever had. Blah 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 blah, as you can imagine. And then we went back to the hotel, and he watched, and there was no way to follow online, so we didn't know. But I don't know how he let Bruce know, but in some capacity, we ended up in a playoff. And you want me to tell the rest of it, or?
Well, I just remember he got you guys together in the parking lot and said, "Guys,
Yeah, yeah.
forget everything
So
I said earlier."
yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he railed on us for a while. And then we're going to be in a playoff. It's a 3-team playoff, us, Oklahoma, and Arizona. The two number 1 teams, and then OU. And it's going to be the shotgun format that they do now, people on different holes. And he's like, "Guys, forget everything I just said. We're going to kick their butt. That's the worst mistake they've ever made. These coaches did blah, blah, blah. We're going to get back in and we're going to steal this thing and blah, 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 blah." And we went out to the playoff, and I was on number 2, I think it was. Chris must have been playing number 1 because he was on 1, and 2 is a par 3. And Coach was there with me because that's what he did at the time, was stand on the par 3s. And I don't know. It was an off speed, some kind of club. I don't remember what iron, but I was taking speed off and didn't really account for the adrenaline that I had. And I I hit it right at it, and I flushed it, but I flushed it over the world. And I don't remember how, but I made a double. Um, and so the first score that they got on, you finished your hole, and it was the low four scores to par. And the radio comes over on each officials. The first score is Oklahoma State double bogey, and then our other first team All American Chris Tidlin, he made a bogey, and I think Brandon Knight maybe made a birdie, and somehow we limped into the playoff, and we ended up finishing 12th, which was his worst finish, and all that did was buy us uh, two more public floggings for a couple of days, and then I was dumb enough to work golf camp
Dumb,
and
dumb, dumb move. Dumb.
allow that flogging to continue.
Yeah, it's be nice to put that 93 season behind you, huh, Alan? For sure.
No doubt, no doubt. Although it set a stage for things going forward, and certainly an appreciation of good play. But yeah, I don't need those beatings anymore.
Okay, so the next year, although the team did not win the title at Stonebridge Ranch, you finished runner-up individually at the national championship to Justin Leonard. The two of you were co-Jack Nicklaus Award winners of the year, I think, players of the year, you and Justin. I think it was a pretty, I don't know, probably pretty disappointing for Mike Holder. Trip Keeney, his driver broke. It was his home course, and he couldn't drive it on the map that week, and just kind of a lot of things occurred. But it was the year before Tiger Woods got to Stanford, and they ended up winning the title before he got there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bittersweet week. We had a great year. We added Tripp. He transferred in. Um, we'd had a really good year. We'd won 8 times. Had a lot of momentum. Had a home course advantage, I guess, for Tripp. Certainly a familiarity, and playing in my home state was good. I had family and friends that were able to make it that normally wouldn't be at the national championship, and we fell short. So that was a bummer for sure.
Well, but I mean, you said setting the stage also for something great. Probably one of the great stories in the history of college golf is what happened at Ohio State in 1995. But go a little bit before that, when Trip Keeney met Tiger Woods in the finals of the USAM at TPC Sawgrass, and then the whole year, all the battles that Oklahoma State and Stanford and also Texas had through that year, three great teams, and you got to the national championship. And now you and Chris Tidlin are fifth year seniors, and a realization, I don't know if you had realized it, but certainly there was a realization that something was about to happen that had never happened in Mike Holder's career. Do you know what that was?
Yeah, I was barely aware. We were very aware at that point, and I think all the way until 2005. So another 10 years before that actually happened, that someone played 4 years for Mike Holder without winning a national championship. And Chris Tidlin and I were getting ready to be that guy. And I'll back up even farther. You mentioned Tripp at the U.S. Amateur playing Tiger. There's another match that not a lot of people know about from that same summer. Um, was at the Western Amateur. So the kind of connection between our two teams ran really deep. Chris Tidlin and Tiger had been on some kind of international. Southern California went to France and played some kind of an international match, and they were there together. Chris had played against Tiger as a junior golfer and knew him well. And Chris and I make the Sweet 16 at the Western Am, and it's kind of funny. We did some renovating on our house this year, and I looked through the closet and I found an old picture that they used to do a Sweet 16 dinner, which I
Yeah.
think they still do. And I have the picture that they gave us, and it was pertinent because Chris Tidlin was in the picture. I'm in the picture. Obviously, Tiger's in the picture. Chris Riley, who's a good friend and was a Walker Cupper and a college coach, and now trying the Champions Tour, and Charlie Wee. And Charlie Wee was a first team All American for Cal, and Charlie Wee is Eric Lee's swing coach. So when we were recruiting Eric out of the portal, I got a hold of Charlie to find out more about him, and for him to help sign off on that. I'm someone that Eric could trust. So back to that Western Amateur, I was paired with Tiger the first 2 rounds of the stroke play. I have no idea what I shot or what place I finished or how he did, but we both made the Sweet 16, and so did Chris. And his first round match is against Tiger. And I was playing someone that I don't remember. And I remember at some point seeing the scoreboard, the walking, standard bearer, and Chris was just getting smoked. And I came somewhere towards the back nine, and I could see that their match was still going. And I was trying to close my guy out so that I could get to see that match. And when we came to, I think it's 15, Chris was going down 18. So there's all these people, the crowd is swelling, and you've heard these roars. Point of Woods was a bit like Augusta National in that way. And um, I could not get my guy closed out until the match was over. But Chris was 4 down with 6 to play, and he birdied all 6 holes.
Mm.
There's 2 par 5s in that stretch. So Chris birdied all 6 holes coming in. Tiger birdied the 2 par 5s. So they tie the match and they go on to a playoff. In the first playoff hole, Chris Tidland hits it right in the middle of the green, 15, 20 feet. Tiger airmails the green. It's going where it's no good, and it hit somebody and stayed by the green, and he got it up and down for par. And then they went to the next hole. So the 20th hole, it's a par 5. Chris Tidland had to lay up, wedged it close, and made a birdie. But Tiger knocked it on in 2 and made an eagle to beat him. So Chris Tidland birdied 7 of his last 8 holes and lost.
Wow.
And then just 2 weeks later is when Tripp was playing Tiger in the finals. I had been at that USAM as well and gave away my match at the end and let a guy chip in on me on the last hole. So I lost my first round match. Got on a plane and flew home. Tripp and Chris Cox were moving right along through the tournament. Chris Tidland was playing the Oklahoma Open, so I caddied for him. Oklahoma Open, as you know, at that time, might as well been a pseudo PGA Tour event opposite the World Series of Golf. You had all the tour players from the state of Oklahoma playing and some additional other tour players, and then the very good mini tour pros from around. And Chris was leading the tournament by 2 or by 1 going into the last hole. The same day that Tripp Keeney was beating Tiger Woods through whatever it was with 11 holes to play, he was 6 up, and Tiger came back and won that match. And in the previous match, Chris Cox lost to Tripp Keeney to get a chance to play Tiger Woods. So the crossovers between our two schools were massive, and I've got great memories from all of that. And then we started out the season at the same tournament we mentioned before. The Tiger Woods' first college golf tournament was the Tucker at the UNM course. And of course, as it should be, I guess Tiger won his first college tournament, and nobody really cares. But I happen to be the guy that was the runner-up to him. And I guess the only claim I have there is the one round I played with him that week, I kicked his butt. So,
well, that's a good fit. Nice on your resume. Nice on your resume.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't
okay.
get him in very many tournaments, but I got him in some rounds.
You did get in some rounds. He's hard to beat for a whole tournament in those days or any time in his career.
Definitely.
But the year was an incredible series of events where you and Stanford and Texas was in that mix as well. They had a really good team all year long. You get to the national championship at Ohio State. The tournament was fraught with rain delays all week, different things. In the final round, you guys went in and you weren't in the last wave of 3 teams, which was only the second time in Mike's career at that point where his team wasn't playing in the final wave, the final round of the national championship. And it was something, and it was 93 was the other year. So
I was on both of those. Thanks.
You were on both of those, Alan. Good job. But this has a better ending here in a second. So 2 things I want to talk about. One, entering the parking lot for the final round, Coach Holder. I know you remember what happened there. And then after he dropped you guys off, what he did after that, which I'll tell about. But go ahead and tell him you guys entered the parking lot for the final round. What did that look like?
Well, every year he did the same thing, and this may be what you're alluding to. So I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, but he actually
steal it.
He actually did it as we pulled in. Well, it was the night before, I think, in the parking lot, but the night before in the parking lot, they have all the signs up, your parking places. And Coach is so superstitious, as you know. it was always a big deal where we parked. You know, you never parked in the middle of the pack. You always had to park on the ends. But we did a few laps through that parking lot after dinner, and he told us we were lapping the field. We
Lapping the
we
field.
we circled around. And then every year that I played, I'm pretty sure he did it every year. As we pulled in the parking lot, he bought a ticket at some championship prior that they won. They wouldn't let him in, and he just said, "Okay, I'll just buy a ticket." And Oklahoma State won, and he did that every year. And um, so yeah, one particular memory that I have mentioned several times that is my favorite memory from college golf. I got some weird favorite memories, I guess. I said my favorite year is a year I never even pegged at one time. And my favorite memory is I've already mentioned the public floggings that I was used to. And through two rounds there, we were getting our butt kicked. I don't know, who knows what place we were in, but I was terrible. And I was supposed to be our best player. And this is my last college tournament. And if we don't win, we leave with the tag of the first guys to, not win in 4 years. And all that stuff was certainly weighing on my mind. And I had shot 70, either 75, 76 or 76, 75, terrible. And I drove it under those stupid trees out there, whatever they were, with the limbs going all the way to the ground every hole, it seemed like. I sucked at Northern Golf. I didn't drive it good enough, and it was kicking my butt. So we rounded. There's a big tree there by number 18, which you know about. And after every round, coach would sit us, get us around there and kind of go over what we did good and what we did bad and what we could do better and all those things. And when you needed a kick in the butt, he would give it to you. And on a rare occasion, he would lift you up too. But I was not expecting that. I had not done a good job. I was ready for my flogging. And he made it around to me and he said, Alan, I'm not worried about you. If we roll you around here two more times, I know you're going to put up a score. And I mean, that floored me right there, that the guy would have confidence in me when I didn't have any in myself. And I didn't hit it any better the next day. I sucked again, but it's the best scoring round that I've ever had in my life. I was bogey free, three under par on a hard golf course, driving it everywhere. And I'll never forget that round or the influence that a coach's belief in a player can have at a weird time. I mean, obviously, you need to get on kids at certain times and hold them accountable. And he had done that for me. And I wasn't really a guy that felt like I needed somebody to pat me on the back. But man, did that make a difference. And again, it was unexpected and it was inspiring. And yeah, I put up a good round. And then the next day, we were three shots behind. And I'm pretty excited now. We've got a chance and we're going out there. I don't even remember who we played with, Florida State and somebody. And then there was a group of individuals behind us, and then Stanford and whoever else, USC maybe, and Texas. And the first hole is a little dogleg right. It's perfect for the cut that I was playing. And here I am, fired up my last round of college golf. I'm going to do great. And I smother hooked it over under one of those trees. Then I had a chip out sideways and then chip out again. And I started my last round of college golf with a double bogey.
Mm.
So quickly, the good work that I did in round two was gone. And um, I'll never forget, I got to the fourth hole, and my high school coach was there watching me that week. And somewhere along the way, when he would come and watch, he had this talent for finding feathers. And every time he found a feather, it was amazing how I would make a birdie. And even fast forward to this day and this week at La Costa, I picked up a few feathers along the way and they paid off. So that was a little bit of a tip of the hat to Danny Hayes, my high school coach. But walking up the fourth hole in the left rough, I had driven it right down the middle, trying to overcome this double bogey and find my game. And I found a dead bird. And Danny Hayes was there. And I looked at him and I said, Hey, coach, what does this mean? We had a little chuckle. Well, I walked over and hit my 5 wood on the green and made an eagle.
Oh boy.
So, if you ever find a dead bird on a course, it's a good thing. So that got me back to even. I made my way through. I don't know. I finally hit two good shots on number 11. I hit a green. Hard hole, drove it down the middle, hit it on the green. Here I go. I'm going to do something good. And what do you know? I'm about 15 feet and I three putted.
Mm.
Way to go, genius. So now I'm back to sucking. I don't know what I did on 12, 13, 14. And then I hit my tee shot on 15 just outside of the bunker and they blew the horn. So we had another rain delay. We'd already had at least one. And we went in for that rain delay. And, there's no live score. There was live scoring, I think, but it was jacked up. I think it was golf stat maybe, but it wasn't accurate at all. And coach had trained us not to look at that stuff anyway. But we kind of we were in the locker room there at Ohio State, and the lockers are kind of in rows. It's an old school deal, and we could overhear Stanford maybe around the corner talking about what they were doing, and that kind of inspired us. They have no idea what they did for us that day by talking about what they were doing, and we're whispering to each other like, "Hey, how do you stand? How do you stand?" Like we got a chance. And we went back out after that delay, and all of a sudden, I was a superstar. I don't know what happened, but the magic from that locker room, I hit a really good shot from wherever I was in the rough into the greenside bunker on 15. I got it up and down. I striped it down the middle with whatever my 4 wood or 5 wood or whatever I had, 3 wood. I think it was a 4 wood. Um, Down the middle on 16. And I'll never forget the feeling of the wedge shot that I hit there. I almost made it. I hit it a foot
Mm.
and tapped in. So that got me back to even. And then 17 was a 4 iron that day. I don't know what the distance was, but that had to be around 200 yards or a little more. And I flushed it right at it. And Gretchen and Michelle Holder were behind the green. And I don't think Amy Tidlin was there. Surely she was watching Chris, but Michelle was there. And my tee ball either lipped out or it almost did and went to about 6 feet. And, I'm off and running. And we go down the hill to walk up to the green, and they blew the horn again.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, I finally found something. We can't have this. But we went in there, and I think that's when Leif had to leave. So we found out my teammate needed to go to the British Amateur. Coach had given him permission, and Bruce had to take him to the airport at that time if he was going to make it. And he had finished his round, shot 72, which helped us that day. I think he saved us a shot or two, which was enough. And but we hear a little bit more or talk to each other a little bit more about what's going on, and we've got a chance because I had made a birdie and somebody else made a birdie, and I've got a birdie look, and we're getting excited now. And we went back out after that rain delay, and sure enough, I made the 6 footer, and then went to 18, and I hit a beautiful draw around the corner. It was super wet, and I think I tried to muscle a pitch and wedge up there and didn't hit a very good shot, but I had about 35 feet maybe. And I wasn't a very good lag putter. I was a really good short putter. So, I would lag it up there to 6 feet and make it or whatever. So anytime I was nervous, I would always remind myself to hit it harder because I would typically come up short. My speed was never overly aggressive. And but that one, however, I smoked it. But a good thing I aimed well. It ended up hitting the cup, hopping up in the air, and going in the hole. So I was able to finish birdie, 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 and we ended up. Chris, somebody else made birdies coming in. Tripp made a birdie, and Chris made a birdie. Chris Cox, and we ended up in that playoff.
Wow. And part of that too was note of the game missed a very short putt at the end. And I think I think Mike Holder's belief in you guys was we can do this that week. And somehow or another you guys got it done. And but it's epic because the playoff had I don't know if you guys had three in the first group or two or whatever, but I do remember you making a 35 footer in the playoff, just staring at Tiger Woods all the way. That had to be amazing.
It was a thrill. And, I think we had joked that because Coach Holder walked with Chris 3 of the 4 rounds that week, and he made some comment while he was watching him warm up, like, Tiddy, this is the last time I ever have to watch you warm up. Well, he had to watch him warm up one more time. And one of the coolest experiences of my college career as well was standing behind that green with the four of us. Leif was already gone, but it was me, Chris, Tripp, and Chris. And we finished and we're like, hey, we got a chance, we did something good. Let's go watch this thing. And we stood behind the green. We had orange shirts on and our black shorts, and we watched the individuals finish, and Chip Spratlin was one of those, and he won the tournament. So Chris had ended up finishing second, and we stood there while the Stanford guys came through. And in the book they wrote, reading Stanford's part, Casey Martin talked about how intimidating that was. And like, I think he credited Mike Holder for, the typical deal, go try to intimidate those guys. And shoot, we weren't trying to intimidate anybody. We wanted to see what happened. Mm-hmm. That was the only way to watch it. It was on TV, ESPN, but they left because of all the rain. And the Golf Channel was there and Scott Van Pelt with a handheld. But that's the only reason there's any video coverage of what the putt that I made. But we just stood there and watched, and sure enough, Noda had a short putt, and he was putting right in left-handed like he had started doing the year before and did throughout his career, and he misread that putt. He either misread it or didn't trust his left-handed putting, because it was a left to right putt, and he set up to it lefty, but then he backed off and switched and putted it right-handed. And fortunately for us, he missed, and then Tiger missed one, maybe the only time in his career that he missed a putt that meant something. And we got to go to that playoff, and the way the playoff went, we only had one person in the first group. Mm-hmm. It was Chris Cox. We were supposed to have our 4 and 5 guy, but we didn't have a 5 guy. So it was 3 Stanford guys and Chris. So Coach Holder went with him, and he had hit it close in regulation, just like Noda, 6 feet or something like that, and missed. And he was regretting that and wanted to kind of avenge that, and he did. He drove it down the middle perfect and stuffed it in there, I don't know, close, similar putt, and made it. So we had a birdie, and they made 2 pars and a bogey. And then the final group was me, Chris Tidlin, and Trip Keeney, and Tiger and Noda. And I don't remember the order. I know I was the last one for us to hit and probably the last one to hit. And everybody flushed it. So I had made a comment at the regional, and my playoff experience wasn't great. The only playoff I'd had as a team was that one in Kentucky where I sucked. And I made a comment. We watched the playoff at the regional, which the regional that I won, and Donnie Dar happened to be second. But we watched the playoff. It was TCU and somebody, and whoever hit first on that team hit it off the planet. And I remember chuckling and saying, "Oh, they're down to just 4 guys now. They're up against it." And I was remembering that and regretting that I had said that as we went to play this hole, because we only had 4. And I teed up my ball, and I had it too high. Like, I needed to push it into the ground a little more, but I was afraid if I tried to do that, I was going to knock the ball off the tee, and my hands were shaking so bad I was never going to get it on the tee. I was going to be the first person that was going to have to ask his playing partner to put the ball on the tee for him. So I just left it, and I hit a toe hook. It looked kind of nice, but it was not a great shot, but it sure turned out good, and it kind of rolled around the corner almost to where my divot was from the time before. And I knew from hitting the wedge before, like, I should probably hit a little 9, but it was so wet, I was afraid I would lay the sod over it. So I just put the wedge back in my stance and tried to muscle it again, and I hit it to the exact same spot that I did before. And this time my speed was impeccable, and it fortunately went in, and we had an awesome celebration after that, and a great meal to follow, and yeah, what a memory.
And Leif Westerberg found out about it in the plane across the Atlantic Ocean heading back. He found out about it while he was still in the air.
Yeah, he called the pro shop from the airport, maybe in Chicago or something, and said, "Hey, who won the tournament?" And the guy goes, "It's not over. It's in a playoff." And Leif said, "Well, who's in the playoff?" And they go, "Oklahoma State and Stanford." And the guy goes, "And get this, Oklahoma State doesn't have their 5th guy." And he goes, "Yeah, that's me."
That's me.
And so he ended up using his credit card and calling from the plane. And that's how he found out that we won.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great story. Well, the NCAA championship always has something strange in it. It seems like every year. So I'm going to fast forward from 95 clear to 2006. I was the head coach at Oklahoma State. You were my assistant, and we had a heck of a team that was on a heater. We were playing really, really well at the end of the year, especially Jonathan Moore, who had just come to life like nobody's business. But I remember something we did there were 2 practice rounds, and Sun River is gorgeous. And Mount Bachelor is one of my favorite mountains in the whole wide world because it's just right there near the golf course. But During the practice round, we stopped on a bridge and you said, guys, tell the story.
Yeah, I have a very good friend from Raleigh, North Carolina that I met my freshman year, 1992. We played in it might have been called the Ping Invitational, but it was at McGregor Downs, an awesome Donald Ross course in Cary, North Carolina. And I played with these guys in the College Am leading into the tournament, and they were so much fun. One was a Carolina grad, one was an NC State grad, and John Haley was an accountant for a clothing company there called Now's. And I didn't know that I was going to meet a friend for the rest of my life, but we had a great time. I think we probably won that college am. And they came out and watched me that week. And I ended up losing the tournament in a playoff. I gave the tournament away. All I had to do was two putt from like 20 feet on the first hole, and I think I three putted. And then we went to the second hole and I lost. But I struck up this friendship with him, and we went back to that tournament multiple times. And anytime I'm on the East Coast, John Haley is there. And we've been great friends. That family that I mentioned, the Now family, I stayed at that house when I played in the U.S. Amateur at Pinehurst as a coach. John caddied for me when I won the USAM qualifying at Tulsa Country Club, beating Jonathan Moore, or not, maybe Jonathan wasn't there, but beating Pablo and Zach Robinson and some of our other guys. We've just been friends forever, and he's been, I call him my East Coast talent scout, but he's a Carolina grad, and he told me a story one time about Dean Smith with his team. I think it was when they won in 1982 with Michael Jordan. He had them go to the Mississippi River, and he said it was good luck to spit in the river. And he told me that, and we had rivers all around there at Sun River. And I said, "Hey, coach, that's good luck. We gotta do that." And that became a magical week. What a performance! And I'll never forget the post game of that, because one, those guys, Jonathan's got a classic picture where we were all standing right behind the hole, and he made that putt and he won the individual, but you could tell the individual paled in comparison to the team. And he looked up at his teammates and clenched his fists. And that picture's on the wall at Karsten, and was just awesome. And then, he was named, I believe, the freshman of the year, and Pablo was the player of the year, and you were the coach of the year. And they dumped that bucket of water on you. We had a team that was really good the year before and didn't get it done. So it was just kind of a culmination of all of that. And your first year as the head coach, and our first year together, and what a ride. And then we had an awesome dinner there, and the setting, and it's got to be the best championship picture ever, with the snow-capped mountain in the background. We had that dinner, and then we had, what is it, a 4-hour drive back to Portland?
4.
And I guess you were driving, since you're Mr. CDL. I don't remember, but I do remember the guys swapping stories, and it was about the sprints that we did, and they probably called John Stem, and that was awesome. Just the way we were able to soak that in, and that's something I'm trying to draw on now. From this week specifically, we flew out there private, but we flew back commercial, and part of that reasoning was because of that experience in '06 and how much fun that was. And we went back to Jonathan's house, and I think we stayed there.
We did.
The guys went and had some fun, and then we had that whole day. Pablo and Jonathan went off to their U.S. Open qualifying, where Jonathan got in, and then we flew back with Zach and Trent and Tyler, you and I with those guys. And do you remember what we did when we landed?
Well, we had the Staffords met us, but I don't remember anything other than that.
We went straight to the Sports Blitz. We were on the set
We
with
did.
Dean
We
and
did.
John, and I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Oh, good.
So that was just, again, to have the chance to soak it in like that, was awesome. And we got that extra time together to kind of share that. When we won in '95, we didn't get to do that. Chris Tidlin and I stayed. We had a great celebration dinner, but then the guys traveled back with Coach. Tripp and Chris were with Coach. Leif was already gone, and Chris and I stayed, and he qualified for the U.S. Open. So I'm fully expecting. I already told Eric Lee, and I hope this ages well, that he was going to make it to Oakmont this year, because he's playing at Valencia Country Club on Monday. He didn't travel back with us. He's from Fullerton, so he just drove up the road to go home, and he was first alternate at his U.S. Open qualifier, and Philip Fallberg Johnson won that qualifier. Well, Phillips didn't get his first choice for the final qualifying. They were going to send him to Columbus on Monday, and he had something important that he had to be home in Sweden for. So he withdrew, and he and Eric have gotten close, and his withdrawal allowed Eric to be in the final qualifier on Monday. And after Eric's the momentum from his performance, I fully expect him to be at Oakmont. It's just I've seen it before. It ties into all these stories, and I believe in that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I am intentionally trying to recreate that. We did a better job of enjoying the 2006 championship than I probably did the 2018 championship.
Well, I do remember that being a wonderful dinner. And two things. One, you told me just the other day that you wore the 2006 ring the last 2 months in Stillwater and at tournaments. There it is right there, which I think is great. I know you're already ordering the next ring, but there's an interesting thing about the national championship rings at Oklahoma State that very few people know, and that is the rings are identical. They're not unique in a different design. Sure, they have different names, and maybe the result on there is looking a little different. It's the same ring since 1963.
Yeah, and that's never going to change. You know, there haven't been many people lead this program, and you're one of them. And I think that's been something really special, the consistency of the messaging and the environment. Whatever we have around here does a good job of building that culture. It's not any one person. It's not Mike Holder. It's certainly not me. I would give most of that credit to Labron Harris and the foundation that he set. And you and Coach did a great job of. I guess Labron was a little too frugal to buy that '63 team a championship ring. And when you guys did that um, reunion in 2002, what an awesome statement to make to those players to get them that ring and make it the same. And Coach Holder had always done that through the years, and I would credit you. I was on the I've been a part of 5 championship teams here because I count myself as a part of that '91 team. I was on the team and redshirted. I didn't shoot a score, but I was sure pushing and pulling from home. Um, and Coach Holder always only got rings for the guys that played, the 5 guys. And, you felt like you were going to get yours. Nobody went 4 years without getting one. But I never agreed with that. I always felt like if you're a part of the team, you should be included. And you did that with the '06 team, and I did that with the 2018 team, and we're going to do that this time as well. But everybody thinks differently about stuff. There's not a right or wrong, but that's what I believe. But I certainly believe that consistency in the rings makes sense. I think we've done a nice job of It's a nice looking ring, but it's not obnoxious. I think it's a humble symbol and a connection among those teams. And um, I went through, you can't believe how many people, former players, sent messages after we won, or you can believe it because you experienced the same thing when we won in 2006. And just the support we have, it's cool to be able to honor them in that way. And I usually try to do that towards the end of the year, start wearing that ring. And I had a good feeling about this team this year. I did wear the same shirt that we wore in 2018. I didn't. I was so cold I had a pullover on over it, but it warmed up by the time we won that I took it off for some of the pictures after, and I hadn't put that shirt on again since that day in May at Karsten. So I think it's important to connect to the past and those little superstitions or whatever they might be. I believe in that stuff, and I think it's important.
By the way, a couple other historical notes here. Jonathan Moore in 2006, he went to the local qualifying for the U.S. Open at Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club, missed. So he wasn't going to be playing in the U.S. Open that year. But the USGA had a special exemption that year for the NCAA champion automatically to go to second stage. So he wins the NCAA and he just goes over there with Pablo and beat Pablo in a playoff to earn his spot in the U.S. Open. That's historical. You mentioned all the players on the team, Pablo, Jonathan, but Tyler and Trent Leon became, I think, the first brothers to anchor a national championship team. Zach Robinson that year who shot a final round 72, was the Byron Nelson Award winner, one of the greatest student athletes I'll ever coach in my life, a wonderful guy. And the smile that Zach had on his face with that trophy, it was ear to ear. I've never seen a smile like it. And interesting note, I think that team, Pablo, Jonathan, Tyler, Trent, and Zach, the last NCAA championship team where not one of the five ever held a PGA Tour card. Pablo won on the European Tour 3 times, but he never had a PGA Tour card. I don't think that's happened since. So
Oh,
those
wow.
guys were, I mean, isn't that a strange stat? I mean, but it's not a bad stat. It's just those guys played some amazing golf at the very end, and I'll never forget it. And thanks for wearing that ring. I appreciate it.
Well, you mentioned that qualifying with Jonathan, and I mentioned Eric. And after we won in '95, I stuck around and caddied. I don't know if I already said this, but I caddied for Chris Tidlin in the sectional qualifier there in Columbus against all the tour players. And he went bogey free for 36 holes and won that qualifier by 2. So
Mm.
he made it to the U.S. Open. You had the deal with Jonathan where he missed the local and then beat Pablo in that playoff to get into the U.S. Open. And then this time, that's why I think Eric Lee's going to make it. His buddy needed to get back to Sweden, opened up that opportunity for him. He built all that momentum this week with his clutch performances, and I'll be really, really surprised if he's not teeing it up at Oakmont.
Well, I hope that for his sake that happens. But his 3 wood in that last match on number 18 is one of the great shots I think I've ever seen. On watching it on television, you were right there, weren't you?
Yeah, it was actually a 5 wood. We
Okay.
took a trip to Titleist when we were out there playing at Palma Valley, and that was something we talked to Eric. You ought to spend a little extra time. Let's find you a 5 wood. That might pay off. And knowing some of the holes at La Costa, number 6 and number 18, I thought, and even number 2, that might really help him. And fortunately for me, I thought it was a 3 wood for him there, but he wanted to hit the 5 wood, and fortunately, I had caught up with him. Preston won his match, and I caught Eric on the 15th tee, and I thought it was a three. I guess it was 15 that I thought was a 3 wood. I thought it was a 3 wood for him off the tee on 15. It was 270, I think it was, to the bunker, and it was into the wind pretty good. And I had just watched Gavin, who hits it farther than Eric, hit a 3 wood short of the bunker. And I'm like, what are you thinking 3 wood? He goes, no, I like the 5 wood. I hit it earlier. And we kind of talked about it. I'm like, okay, right on. That we know that's not getting to the bunker. And he roasted it. And it was only 5 steps short of the bunker. He hit it 265. And then he hit, I don't remember what he did. He had a pretty good look and he just missed the putt. And then he just missed it on 16. And now they go to 18 and he's got to hit this clutch shot. And he had 261. He was 239 front, 261 to the hole. And I'm like, well, we know what club this is, because he had just done that. Again, if he hadn't hit that one that was more into the wind, I might have thought it was a 3 wood. And he hit that thing so on the button. I told him he should imprint that swing forever. And what a shot under the circumstances. A kid from Southern California, loved the weather, loved the conditions, has played that style of golf a long time. And under that pressure, when his buddies are counting on him, that was awesome. What a shot. And I
Oh,
wish my eyes were good enough to see it hit the ground. I could see it was right at it, but fortunately, there were plenty of people up by the green that let us know. And it was one of those where the roars were kind of back and forth. When he hit it, there were quite a few people around, all his teammates and others, and they were roaring. And then the ball hit the ground, and you could hear it from the green. And then, it sinks into your brain, and you got to hear it again. And then the walk up to that green was nothing short of spectacular.
that's wonderful. Well, I mean, obviously you have a bunch of great memories. Tell me this. Is it a fact? Have they documented that it's the first time a national championship team has had all 5 players, sophomore or freshman, underclassmen? Is that the first time ever? Because I've never seen it happen before.
I don't know, but I mean, obviously, it has to be rare. And another kind of cool thing about that is we're going to have 4 academic All-Americans this year, since they've lowered allowed you to do it as a sophomore. All 4 of those kids. Our team GPA this spring was 3.84, and
Hmm.
in the fall it was 3.71. So 2 first teamers, um, 3 All Americans, 4 academic All Americans, and the performance they put on was pretty special, and we had a lot of crowds show up, and it felt like a home game.
Okay, so let's button this up with the welcoming home party at Stillwater Airport included your freshman roommate, your lifelong friend, Chris Tidlin. He was there, which I know meant a lot to you.
Yeah, Ryan Cameron, what a good job he does making our media guide and just, carrying the banner for Oklahoma State and spreading the word all the time. He got a hold of me and, did we want to do something like that? I said, yeah, the guys will think that's great. And, he mentioned a police escort, and we didn't know if that was true. But we had our Sprinter van. We had Ryan drive over the Sprinter to pick us up, and we had enough people. I didn't want a bunch of luggage and whatnot to have to fit in the back. I wanted them to be able to ride in style. So I did a one-way rental through the clubs in there, and I was following behind them. And, the police kind of intercepted them, and the guys didn't really believe there'd be anybody at the airport, but there was I bet there were 50, 60 people, and the police escort. Ethan got out of the Sprinter and got in the police car and hung out the window with a golf school flag and waved that as he went in. And what a reception, and what a cool way for the kids to be welcomed home in a small community that really cares about what they do, and get a chance to show those guys, all of our fans, the trophy. I don't think those guys will ever forget that.
That's wonderful. It reminded me a little bit of when Peter Uihlein won the U.S. Amateur, and you and Peter flew back together, and we had a gathering, maybe 30 or 40 out there just to late. It was probably 2 a.m.
Ooh, that was late night. I remember him saying, don't anybody go to sleep. The party's coming back to Stillwater. That was his 21st birthday. That's one that too. We have 2 guys that have won USGA championships on their birthday. I mean, what are the odds of that? Kevin Tway. Yeah. The U.S. junior, and Peter, the U.S. amateur. So just awesome to think about all that stuff. I've been so blessed to be standing around with great people in some pretty cool moments. And I'm glad you and I have that bond forever in lots of different ways, but certainly at that Sun River National Championship.
Obviously, I love Baylor, and I'm thrilled to be here, and obviously Baylor first for sure, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for Oklahoma State. Can't spend 16 years someplace and not have that. And certainly these stories have been fun to go over with you. And I do have a few statistics for you before we finish here. Okay. Oklahoma State's now won 12 NCAA championships, 17 runner-up finishes, 6 third place, 12 fourth place, 11 fifth place. That's 58 times in 78 years in the top 5. So that's a little silly when you look at it that way. All 4 coaches, Laban Harris, Mike Holder, Mike McGraw, and Alan Bratton, have won a national championship. It's the only sport that I know of that in any team, in any sport, where every single head coach that's ever coached at the school has won a national championship. OSU wrestling would be the next, as long as Coach Taylor wins a title, it'll be every one of their coaches has. You have, let's see, yes, you are one of 5 current coaches in NCAA. Chris Hack, Conrad Ray, Jay Sewell, John Fields, and yourself current coaches have won 2 titles. And you're the only coach in history to win as a player, as an assistant coach, and as a head coach. Those are stats that I've came up with for the end of this podcast. Pretty incredible. Keep up the great work you're doing, Alan. And thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Coach. And the coolest part about my week was my son, Mason. The last time I was on here, he was getting ready to get married. And this time, after the second round, he told me that he and his wife are going to have a baby. So I get to celebrate this championship with a grandchild coming in January. So what a perfect, serendipitous week for me, for sure, and for Oklahoma State. And wow, I hope we get to do something like that again.
Well, congratulations on that as well. Mason, I can still remember Mason being about a 12-year-old climbing the light poles at Karsten Creek, 30 feet up in the air. And I was just sure something bad was going to happen. That kid was an animal, wasn't
he? Yeah, he loves to climb. He still climbs. He's taken it to actually rock climbing now. I liked it when he was climbing light poles better.
Well, listen, Alan, thanks. Congratulations. I know I'll see you on the road recruiting this summer. Congratulations again on a great accomplishment.
Thanks, Coach. See you soon.